Well, hi, I'm Steve Mouzon, and I have with me here Dhiru Thadani. And Dhiru, I don't know quite how to introduce you because of the fact that I kind of want to introduce you as the new superstar of the new urbanism, because
No.
you've had two things happen in the last several months. It's absolutely extraordinary. You came out with a book, which is, I mean, it literally, what does that thing weigh? 15 pounds or something like that?
Just 9 pounds. A modest 9 pounds.
Yeah, but it's just an immense resource. And then right after that, you won the Seaside Prize. I mean, that's quite a roll. What do you do for an encore?
Oh, I don't know. Work on some more books, I guess. So, continue doing what I've been doing because I enjoy it so much. Well, the book was really kind of, a labor of love. It started maybe 15 or 20 years ago when we were talking about, and you were probably part of this discussion, Steve, when we were talking about the lexicon and the role of language in architecture and urban design, and the fact that we could not speak to each other because we didn't have a common language. And when I said, let's design a boulevard, half the people in the audience, or more than half, didn't know what that was, or didn't really know the meaning. And I think part of the mistrust towards architects and planners are these words. They say you're going to have a town center, and you're getting a strip shopping center. Is the result. So I think this mistrust of architects and developers and planners comes from our misuse of these words. That these words have lost their meaning. So my thought was that besides trying to get to the origins of the word, the first usage of the word, that I would describe it visually. And try to describe it so that there was less confusion, because the words had already caused so much confusion. So hence, visual dictionary.
We spoke a few days ago about your recent experience in India and your native land, and seeing them beginning to make all of the mistakes that we've made, except on a much grander scale, because there's simply more of them. Talk about that for just a moment, if you would. That was a very touching thing.
Well, it was. I've done a lot of work in India, and for the last 15 years, and it's an uphill battle, because there's always an attitude in any developing country that what the West produces was good, and there's a kind of a notion to emulate, and there's what I would call a fear of appearing backwards. Okay, and it's really it's amazing how people won't value their own culture. 5,000 years of culture doesn't matter to 100 years of high-rise buildings, for instance. The high-rise building is still considered as a kind of iconic development, or Manhattan, or, and then and there's these kind of centers of commerce are filled with these iconic buildings. And someone in the developing country looks at that and says, that's the future. We want to be like that. We want to be like America. And while America is kind of trying to undo the clock, places like India are literally now 1950 America, because you have the emergence of a middle class for the first time in India. Salaries in the last 3 years have gone up twice, double, to, so people have actually doubled. So think about that. So that's like a 30% increase in salary every year. And the GNP has gone up 10% growth. So, that's the competition for qualified people. So here you've got an emerging middle class, extremely happy with disposable income. And you've got this kind of barrage of multinationals coming in, selling everything American. All the packaging, all this stuff that will land up in a landfill. Most of it will land up in a landfill. Things that they couldn't even imagine doing in this country, they're doing, but they have the plants and the know-how. They're taking it over and saying, and they can say with authority, we sold 15 billion units in America. Don't you want this? And someone in India says, boy, they sold 15 million units of this. People bought it. We should want it too. So it's really sad. And I actually saw. I mean, and the thing is, what can you say? You can't tell somebody, hey, no, you don't want that. It's it's terrible, because they think we never had access to this. And now we have access to it, and it's our right, it's our time. Just like the automobile, you tell somebody, hey, the automobile, increases accidents, deaths, your dependency on fossil fuel, insurance, all those things. And we're trying to move to a place where people don't need to drive.
Right.
And someone says, I've been in transit all my life, because I couldn't afford, or there wasn't, even if I could afford it, it wasn't available. There was so much, the demand and supply. Now I can afford it, and I want to be in my own private car.
Right.
And the level of congestion, in a place like Bombay, when I left Bombay in 1972, 1% of Bombay drove cars, went to work in a car, 1%. Okay. Then, 20 years ago, 3% of Bombay were in cars, going to work in cars. Today, 7%. Wow. So imagine that, and the infrastructure and the road system is the same. Right. So now there's 7 times more cars on the streets than there were 35 years ago.
And 7% is still a very small number.
It is.
If you go from that to, like in the U.S., nearly 100%,
right.
95 or whatever it is, the implications of that are just staggering.
And there are no roads. The roads haven't increased. We haven't increased our roads 7 times.
Right.
It's the same road. But it also points out, at least in a city like Bombay, the resilience of a traditional urban network of streets.
Sure.
Because that urban network of streets can still accommodate millions of people, right, but cannot accommodate millions of cars.
Right.
So that's
right.
That's a kind of fundamental difference that's happening.
Well, let me ask you this: if there is a hope mm-hmm. of turning the tide away from the mistakes that we made. Now, obviously, people are more prosperous. You don't want to say no, sir. You have to be poverty-ridden again. Mm-hmm. So not that, but the mistake. There's some clear mistakes that we've made. If there is a hope of turning that tide, what is it, or is there any hope?
Well, it's investment in the transit system that's very robust. 2 million bus tickets are sold in Bombay every day, okay, which is phenomenal when you think about it, just in a single day. With that, you could actually have better buses, more comfortable. You could air condition the buses, for instance, like they here. So you could improve the standard, and not at the expense of just put all that money into cars. Right now, Bombay is embarking on a program to build 100 flyovers, over the streets. Every busy intersection now is a flyover. Okay, and that's an incredible amount of money, right?
Right.
That money could go into putting doors on the trains, because the train system in Bombay, which is a surface train, doesn't have any doors, because you've seen those great pictures of all those people hanging on the trains, right? But you could do better trains, you could do longer trains, you could put, you could take that same money and invest it in transit, right, and it would serve 93% of the people.
Yeah.
Okay. Whereas all this money that's going to serve 7%,
sure,
is only causing congestion and is harming the environment tremendously. So I think that's the shift that needs to happen. And as the price of gasoline increases now in this country, as price of gasoline increases, it really hurts the poorer economic group. Right. In India, it's hurting the higher economic group. Sure. So who always travel, that 7% from 3 to 7%, right, that 4% used to go on transit. Yeah. So as the price rises, it's possible that we can send those people in a better transit system, sure, a more comfortable transit system. And we already have a system there where you have first class, second class, third class. So take the first class and make it air conditioned and make it comfortable, and allow people to travel, right, in more luxury, right, than traveling in a car, or the equivalent. Sure, level the playing field in terms of comfort.
Sure.
So I think at some point they have to realize that the investment in the automobile and roads is only going to cause more congestion. Right. And it's a mistake that we know very well here. We all understand. You build more roads, you're going to get more cars. Yeah. And you're never going to catch up.
That which you encourage, you get more
right,
of.
Exactly. And as Jan Gehl says, it's the invitation that you send out to the citizens. If you invite them to travel by train and you make the train comfortable, they'll travel by train. You invite them to travel by road, that's what they're going to do. And right now, sidewalks are being eliminated for traffic, for lanes.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, so you can't even walk then?
You can't,
So
yeah. And,
wow.
well, people walk on the street, you know, and they kind of say, okay, well, you know, that's because they want an extra lane.
Right.
So they'll remove the sidewalk from one side of the street and say, everyone who wants to walk walks on that side of the street, you know, which is just ludicrous. I'm really, you know, I think that it's coming to a point where it's so absurd that, you know, someone's going to say, hey, wait a minute, what are we doing?
Right.
You know, because it's not going to work.